in regards to the passing of children, that's a fairly heavy loss, and it's not one that goes away, and it's just sort of something that you have to learn to live with. Do you have any advice for people on coping mechanisms and how to stop the ripple effect of more serious mental illness, such as depression, PTSD, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's massive loss, total. It's not, nobody wants that loss. That's one of the biggest ones people experience. And grief is a funny thing. It's sort of like, I remember reading this sort of, it's like a poem on grief. It sort of made sense. They sort of talked about grief like, as you know, you're in a storm and the boat goes over, and grief is the waves that hit you, 10-meter high waves that hit you every minute of the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. You're waxed by these waves. And gradually you might only get a wave maybe every 3 minutes, a big wave. And then gradually a wave every hour. And then the waves are getting a bit smaller. And then life goes on, but then occasionally a big wave comes and whacks you again. So that is sort of grief after something that big. How do you find meaning? Because sometimes it's about meaning after this. What do you do? And often people, after they lose something that big, they find meaning in it. The meaning has to be bigger than themselves. Sometimes when you have such a big loss, the only way to manage it, I'm not even going to say move on, is to find something bigger than yourself. Some existential meaning, either in like doing this and helping others with this disease, writing a book about it, doing something that you find bigger than yourself. And find ways of honoring the memory, find ways of, when you have an anniversary date, doing something special. I suggest people get people to light a candle and put a picture of the candle on their Facebook for all their, all their friendship groups on Facebook around the anniversary date, to find connection in the loss, to find something. It doesn't ever 100% go away, but it becomes tolerable. And there are times where it hurts more than others. The PTSD part, again, really needs some help. If you're finding yourself going through flashbacks of everything and it feels overwhelming at times, I think it's really important to get some support. Looking after your basic health, like eating well, sleeping well, exercising, is also really important to manage mental health. There will be times where you'll actually be surprised and find yourself having a good time. And it's important to allow yourself, because the guilt could come in and push that down. And again, guilt is not love. So it's really important to allow yourself those good times and try and put the guilt accountable for where this is about your thing, about you, not about your son.
That's really helpful, Sue. I found the wave analogy very relevant too. So
I was going to say, Jenna, that's really relatable. I think that in Jenna's case and in our family's case, we call it seasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nate has his own season because there's a lot of significant dates that are all sort of close to each other. So you sort of know that you're coming into Nate's season, and that wave hits as such, and it's a little bit harder than it is every other day. But then after those significant dates and whatnot, it's not necessarily easier, but it's not as hard.
It's just less prevalent, maybe.
Yeah, it's less in your face almost.
Yeah. That's sort of a nice way to look at Nate's seasons in a way too, because it's part of his life journey, and it's a sad part of his life journey. But knowing a season also changes, and it will never change, but the season around Nate might change, and it might be less. Sometimes you have a good winter season, not a bad one. So maybe that could happen as well.